Easy explain, ecological organization. Let's get eco-organized. The purpose of this video is to provide a brief introduction to the study of ecology. We're going to be starting with answering the question, what is ecology? And moving on beyond from there, looking at the different levels of this field of study. It's quite big. It's a pretty big pyramid if you want to think about it that way, with a lot of different layers. Or there's a lot of different concentric circles if you'd rather think about it like that. But for starters, let's just break down what this field of study is. So when we say we're doing ecology, or you work in ecology, you're studying ecology, what we're really looking at is how organisms, living things, which we're going to refer to as biotic factors, right? Bio, life. We're looking at them and how they interact with their environment, like the environment itself, right? And we are going to call those abiotic factors, the non-living things. This is a little different than environmental science, because environmental science is just looking at the environment, right? Like air, water, soil. Ecology looks at life in the environment, right? We're bringing those biotic factors into it. So again here, just to break down what these factors are, abiotic is anything that's non-living in your given ecosystem, the area that you're studying. And so think of all the conditions and pressures involved with the elements, right? Like air, water, ground, etc. And then we're really focusing in on the biotic factors, the living things, the organisms, and how they interact with it. That's really our main area of focus there. We're really focusing on those interactions. Ecology is all about interactions. It's a very interactive science. But again, if we're going to think about ecology like a pyramid or like a series of concentric circles, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different levels. So starting at the smallest level, we have individuals, right? That's just any single organism from any species that we're looking at. Quick review from other videos, other lessons we've had, just what is a species, right? When we talk about an individual from a species, it's any group that can reproduce and create fertile offspring, right? That's always the key component being part of the same species. You need to be able to make babies that can someday make their own babies, right? Those fertile offspring are key for defining what a species is. So your smallest level, the tiniest level of the pyramid, or the smallest circle of the concentric circles of ecology, is the individual level, looking at individuals of a species. Next level up would be a population, where you take a whole group of individuals from the same species and just look at the area that they're living in together, right? They're going to be connected here, they're going to be living together. That's what determines something being a population. Individuals from the same species living together in a given area. Next level up in your pyramid, or next concentric circle, we have community ecology. And this is where it gets really interesting. This is where we see a lot more interactions, right? Those community interactions taking place. This is where we start to get different populations, potentially from different species, right? Really starting to interact together in the same area. So this is the cool stuff, right? This is usually symbiosis, predation, competition of any sort. More on that later. Next level up, we're going to look at the whole ecosystem. So that's going to be your communities, right? All your living species and how they're interacting together. And this is really where we bring the abiotic factors of the environment into it. We really start to look at how those biotic factors interact with the abiotic factors. This brings us a lot of times to food chains, food webs, the biogeochemical cycles, right? Those carbon cycle, water cycle. Again, more on those later. But to keep going up our pyramid, or to go out yet another layer in the concentric circles, we get to biomes. You've probably heard of these before. They're the really big areas of land or water that we determine, we classify and name based on what their climate is like throughout the year, the flora and fauna that live there, flora being plants, fauna being animals, and just basically where we find them, right? Like we wouldn't find a tropical rainforest not along the tropical belt. We wouldn't find an estuary way inland, right? We need freshwater meaning saltwater. Just to give you a couple examples of biomes. Beyond that, we're pretty much at the top of the pyramid, or the biggest concentric circle at this point. We have the biosphere, right? Which is essentially just Earth. More technically, it's anywhere on Earth that we find life, which you'd probably be surprised, right? It can actually survive pretty high up in the atmosphere. It can survive pretty low down, deep under the ocean. So the biosphere is pretty big, right? That's the really big picture of ecology. Kind of hard to study at that point, but there are some theories, like the Gaia theory, that propose it's all interconnected and it's all living together in some degree. Really, just a final couple key terms here to wrap up our intro to ecology. It's all about biodiversity, right? We're really looking at the diversity of life, whether it's the genetics of a single species, whether it's the amount of species in a given ecosystem, or it's the amount of ecosystems that we find that are healthy and thriving in a biome, right? Just to go up all those levels together. And if you're going to zero in, if you're going to do studies and research here, you're probably picking a keystone species to look at. And those are species that have been determined to be so important to the health, stability, integrity of an ecosystem that without them, it collapses. Super, super important organisms. The name here is actually an engineering term. Think of a keystone at the top of an arch, supporting the arch and holding the arch together. It's the same idea, right? These species are so important, they hold it all together. If you remove it, that arch collapses. The ecosystem collapses. So again, that's just our brief introduction to ecology, just going through getting organized. Hope this helps.